Good afternoon, I'm Georgie Donahay and welcome to the Author's Shelf. Sorry about that, we seem to get cut off there. For those of you who have little ladies around the house, you'll no doubt be familiar with today's guest. Jacqueline Harvey is the author of the very popular Alice-Miranda and Clementine Rose series. Jacqueline will be joining me in the studio very shortly.
99.7 2SSR FM.
I'd like to welcome today's guest, Jacqueline Harvey. Jacqueline is the author of the Alice-Miranda and Clementine Rose series. She's a writer, ambassador for the Room to Read organisation, and was a friend to the National Year of Reading in 2012. Her books grace the shelves not only in Australia, but the US, UK, New Zealand and Asia. Not too bad at all. And I understand she does a pretty good Thunderbirds impersonation too. Too bad it's not television. Here to tell us a little bit more about herself is Jacqueline Harvey. Jacqueline, welcome to the Author's Shelf.
Thank you very much for having me, Georgie. It's lovely to be here.
Tell us, I ask this question of every guest, what is the Jacqueline Harvey story?
I guess the short version is I've got a background in education. I was a teacher and deputy head of a junior school for quite a long time. And I suppose I always loved to write as well. And so I've actually been published for 10 years come last year, 2013, which was a bit of a surprise, I think, when I reflected on that. And I really continued with a dual career for quite some time. And it's really only since the end of 2012 that I took the giant leap to become a full-time writer.
So when did you know when did you realise that you wanted to be a writer?
I think when I was a child, when I was growing up, I loved to tell stories, and so I didn't know, though, how you would be a writer, how you would go about becoming published, and it was a quite mysterious job, I think. And I actually knew from a very early age that I was going to become a teacher. I had a particularly inspirational teacher when I was in 4th and 5th grade, and I wanted to grow up and be just like her. And although I loved to tell stories, it wasn't until I was working as a teacher after uni when I did some children's literature courses at university, and I really enjoyed them very, very much and did quite a bit of writing then. And I remember a lecturer at uni said to me, you should think about doing that later on. And it wasn't until I met a writer who was working with my class. And a lady called Jane Carroll came as author in residence for a week. And I did a lot of, looking and asking her questions. I probably asked the woman 10,000 questions about how she did it. And I really became inspired to write a lot for my classes then. And so I guess early on I wanted to do it, but it took me a while to work out how to do it.
Excellent. So how do you come up with your story ideas?
I think being a teacher for over 20 years has certainly helped me with lots of inspiration as a children's author. So coming up with ideas, I suppose when I was thinking about writing the Alice-Miranda series, I wanted to use something that I knew well, which was obviously the school context and the school setting. And so the most difficult part, I think, is coming up with a character who is unique and who has points of difference to other characters. And so with Alice-Miranda, I had a lot of ideas about what kind of a child that I wanted her to be. And I really wanted her to have this kindness and optimism that I think sometimes characters don't have. And so, I spent a lot of time developing that idea. And then in terms of coming up with the plots for the stories, really it's about, sometimes it can be a place, and I think, I'd like to set a story in Paris, or I'd like to set a story around a school event, or perhaps around a school play, that sort of thing. So I don't know, ideas for me come from all over the place. I can be reading the newspaper and get an idea from the newspaper, or see something on TV, or particularly traveling. I get loads of ideas from travel and taking photographs.
I really love Alice-Miranda's name, and I'm going to invite you to tell us a little bit more about Alice-Miranda. Thanks for joining me on the Author's Shelf this afternoon. I'm chatting with children's author Jacqueline Harvey. Jacqueline, I've asked my last couple of guests, what is their secret to writing a great series? Now, I know you've got the Alice-Miranda series and Clementine Rose, so let us in a little bit on what's your secret?
What's the secret? I think the secret to a great series is having really terrific characters that you love spending time with as the author. I think that in order to continue and to keep that excitement and the the momentum going in the series, it's really important that you're absolutely in love with your characters. I also think that there's got to be scope to add new characters, and certainly that's something that happens pretty much in every book. And the interesting plots particularly important. I think it's just such an integral part of the series, though, that you, as the writer, you have to love what you're writing.
Sorry about that. Tell us a little bit about Alice-Miranda.
Alice-Miranda has a very long name. Her full name, which you alluded to earlier, George, is it's Alice-Miranda Heighton-Smith Kennington-Jones, and she's the offspring of Cecilia Heighton-Smith and Hugh Kennington-Jones. And the parents didn't know what to call her, so they called her the whole lot together. And although it is a mouthful, it's a name actually that I tested on students that at the school that I was working at. And I asked the children how long it would take for them to remember that off by heart. And I think it's obviously got a bit of a lyrical sing-song quality about it, because I had kids, telling me about 5 minutes after I'd put it up for them to memorize, take it down, I know it off by heart, and they did. So the name works. It's for whatever reason, as ridiculous as it might sound, it definitely works. When you first meet Alice-Miranda, she's the tender age of 7 1/4. And she takes herself off to boarding school at that age.
That quarter is huge, isn't it?
Yes.
For kids that age. Yeah.
Oh, a quarter. The quarter thing is so, you never get a child say to you, I'm just 6. It's always, I'm 6 1/4 or 6 3/4, or, they can sometimes tell you down to the day how old they are.
Love that.
And I love that too. So with Alice-Miranda, I think things that I particularly love about her, she's an extraordinarily positive character. And she has the ability to talk to anyone, be they a child younger than she is or somebody who's, a very advanced years. And she makes friends with people, and even people who perhaps rebut her kindnesses in the beginning. She has a way of winning people over, I think. She has a capacity to change people without knowing that she does. And what I love about her, she comes from quite an extraordinary background. Definitely not anything like the way I grew up. I didn't grow up with a private plane and a helicopter at my disposal. But to her, her life is just her life. And there's no show about it. There's no boasting. And I think it challenges that stereotype that, if children are born into circumstances where they do have every advantage, that why should they automatically be spoiled brats? That Alice-Miranda is certainly not that. And I really love that about her.
Now, I believe Alice-Miranda is going to have her own website sometime this year.
Yes, actually, we're in the stages of development at the moment, not just for Alice-Miranda to have a website. My own personal website is being completely revamped, and as part of that, there'll actually be 3 prongs to that website. So there'll be the part about me as the author, and then there'll be a dedicated part of the site just for Alice-Miranda and another dedicated part of the site for Clementine Rose.
Excellent. And the Clementine Rose and the Alice-Miranda portions of the website, will they be as if those characters are talking? Will it be run by those characters?
Yes, and have lots of things to do with them. So there'll be quizzes and games and, all about the characters, that sort of thing. So quite similar to the way at the moment I have a blog that I run as my own blog, the Jacqueline Harvey blog, and then I also have the Clementine Rose and Alice-Miranda blog, and it's as if those girls talk to the audience.
Okay. All right. So if you're fans of the Clementine Rose or Alice-Miranda series, keep your eye out for the new website sometime this year. What's Alice's name again?
Alice-Miranda Heighton-Smith Kennington-Jones.
I love that. Just rolls off your tongue. I would hate to be an engraver and have to engrave that. Tell us, what's been the most memorable moment of your career so far?
I think that's a really hard question because, when you're first starting out and you're wanting to be published, getting that message. I first got my first publishing contract came through on an email, and I was actually at work at school at the time, and I remember just, being, I think I must have screamed so loudly that the teacher in the classroom next door thought something terrible had happened. My children were off at another lesson, at a music lesson. And I think, that when you're starting out is just such a thrill to know that, you are going to be published and you're going to have a book out. And since then, there have been so many highlights. I was really fortunate. I had an honour book in the Children's Book Council Book of the Year Awards in 2006. And then last year I had an honour book in the Koala Awards, which are the Children's Choice Awards. And in 2012, Alice-Miranda at School won the Yabba Award, which is the Victorian version of the Children's Choice Awards, and was an honour book in the New South Wales Koalas. So all of those things, like awards, are really exciting. Yeah. But for me, I think the things that I remember the most are meeting children and talking to kids in various places all around the world. I met a girl in America, in South Carolina, who's made an incredible impact on me, just because she wanted to be a writer and she didn't think that she would ever be able to do it. And since then, she and I we correspond on email, and we also Skype, and I'm sort of, I guess, just encouraging her to follow her dream and pursue what she wants to be.
Oh, that's lovely. So you've had not just one memorable moment, but you've had lots of memorable moments in your career. You're listening to The Author's Shelf on 2SSR. If you'd like to interact with us during the show, you can send us a message via our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Author's Shelf, or you can tweet us at The Author's Shelf. My guest today is Jacqueline Harvey. Jacqueline, what's the best piece of advice, writing advice, that you've been given?
Oh, I think it's really just don't give up. It's, writing is a difficult business, and, there are only so many publishers looking to publish so many books in Australia each year. And so it's really that perseverance, which is such an important thing. But I mean, on top of perseverance, I think being prepared to take feedback and to listen to people who are experts, and not become sort of so wedded to a project that you can't see past it. If it's not the right project at the right time, then, it's important to be flexible in what you're doing. And I think those things have really helped me over time. I think probably those two things, and enjoy it. Make sure that what you write is what you love. Because if you're not enjoying it, if it's a horrible chore, then it's going to come across in what you write.
And you're doing the wrong thing. If you don't enjoy it, then
that's absolutely
look for something different, because you need to love it, because honestly, it's can make you a bit insane sometimes.
It's too hard. There's too much work to it not to love it.
All right, you introduced us to Alice-Miranda in the last segment. Now it's time to introduce us to Clementine Rose.
Okay, well, Clementine Rose is younger than Alice-Miranda. She's 5 when you first meet her, but she's quite... she's a fun and gorgeous little girl who she's actually adopted, and she's adopted in a very mysterious set of circumstances. She basically is delivered in the back of the bread van from the local patisserie, and somehow she's come to be in this basket of bread rolls between the time that Pierre Rousseau, the local baker, has made a delivery at the local shop, and now he's gone to Penpathy House, where she ends up with the family there, and she is delivered for Lady Clarissa Appleby at Penpathy House in Penpathy Floss. So she has an interesting quirk, right from the beginning, I guess. And she has a wonderful sense of fun. She's one of those children who loves to be helpful, but it doesn't always go the way that she plans. She has a pet teacup pig called Lavender, who she adores. She lives in an unusual house. Penpathy House is a hotel, a country hotel, and she lives with her mother, her adoptive mother, Lady Clarissa Appleby, and they have a butler, Digby Pertwhistle, who's been the butler at Penpathy House since Lady Clarissa was a little girl herself. So he's really not like a servant, he's part of the family. She also has another family member come to live in the house, her great aunt Violet, who is rather a challenge, you might say.
Yes, I'm familiar with Violet, yes.
Yeah, so Clementine, some of her special things about her: she loves to learn poems and recite poems, and she also has a real eye for fashion. And the lady who owns the local village store, her name's Margaret Mogg, she adores Clementine, and she often sews her beautiful little dresses and things, so she shares that love.
You have the most fabulous names for your characters. Where do they come from?
I spend hours and hours thinking about names for my characters, and I literally go through, I use the internet a lot. I go through baby name lists. I go through the phone book from different countries, depending on what I'm writing about. So, for example, when I was writing Alice-Miranda in Paris, I was looking through the French phone book online. It's something that I really love, and it's something that I think is very important to have the right name for the right character.
Well, they certainly are very, very unique. And I did think of An absolutely horrible joke when you said that Clementine Rose was delivered in the back of a bread van. I was going to say that puts a different spin on having a bun in the oven.
It does indeed.
Sorry, I had to do that one. So, all right, you've recently returned from an overseas trip promoting your books. Tell us about that. That must have been fun.
It was great fun. I've been very fortunate since 2012. I actually took some long service leave in 2012 from my job and spent I guess it was 3 months traveling in America and England doing a book tour. Not your typical long service leave trip, I think, but certainly it was an opportunity to see what perhaps could become in the future. And so then when I did resign from my job at the end of 2012, I was very lucky that last year I went to Singapore and England in February, and then I went back again and spent another 2 weeks in Singapore in October and then a month in England. And so really those tours are opportunities to meet the readers and to get out and promote the books. I've visited, I would be well over 100 schools. I couldn't imagine. I should add it up, actually. I was thinking that this morning, and spoken to thousands of kids. And one of my most memorable events from this recent tour, I was working in Singapore, and I went to a Singapore local school, and it was a girls' school, and there were 1,500 girls aged from 6 to 12, and my session was for all 1,500 of them at the same time.
Wow.
And so trying to do, to do the sort of show that you do for that many children, I was, I guess I wasn't nervous. I was a little apprehensive, but it was absolutely fantastic. And those kids were just incredible. Their enthusiasm was amazing. And I can tell you the book signing and sales subsequent to that was sort of mind-blowing.
Did you have to sign books at the school?
For that particular visit, I actually, the bookseller I work with over there, Cheryl, she was doing a book fair at the school on the Wednesday and Thursday. So I'd signed a lot of stock from the warehouse, but she ran out. I mean, it was in the hundreds of
That's
books.
That's a lot of books to sign. You would have got writer's cramp just from signing your name.
Yeah, no, it was great. I love to do that sort of thing.
All right, we're going to take a short break and we'll return with Jacqueline. And Jacqueline's going to read an excerpt from her new book, Alice-Miranda in Japan. And I might just get her to say that name again. We'll be back in just a minute. You're tuned into the Author's Shelf on 2SSR 99.7. Now, Jacqueline's going to read an excerpt from her book, her new book, Alice-Miranda in Japan. Take it away, Jacqueline.
Thank you. And this is from chapter 1. The young girl wove her way through the surging crowd. Sumimasen, she muttered over and over, apologizing to each person she bumped into. She scanned the street, checking to see if she was still being followed, and pulled her baseball cap lower. She wondered if the city was always like this, with so many people in a hurry to be somewhere else. Up ahead, she spied a small group of students in black and white uniforms, long socks and gym shoes. They were talking excitedly, and above the din, she heard one of them say subway. Her heart beat faster as she scurried to keep up, hoping they would lead her there. The students walked several blocks, then rushed downstairs into a labyrinth of tunnels where they disappeared into a tangled mass of people. The girl wanted to stop, to look at the address and find a map, but she was dragged along in the current of commuters and soon became pinned against a barrier. A strange smell filled the air, sharp and tangy. It was like nothing she'd experienced before. Her stomach clenched and she wondered if it was the unpleasant odour or hunger pangs or maybe just fear. She looked left and right, unsure of how to make the gate open. Tickets snapped in and out beside her. She was trapped. An angry voice shouted, telling her to hurry up. A man prodded her in the back. Her mind raced. She saw her opportunity, dropped to her knees and crawled under the turnstile. Then she ran for it, pushing through the mob and forcing her way onto the waiting train. The doors slid shut and the train surged forward. She willed herself to be invisible, slipping into the corner of the carriage, where finally she breathed.
Oh, very exciting there. When's that new book due out?
It's actually due out on the 1st of February, but I was just thinking when you were talking before, Georgie, and I can organise to get a copy of Alice-Miranda in Japan sent to you so that you will have the entire set to give away to your listeners.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you. I've been chatting this afternoon with Jacqueline Harvey. I have one last question for you, Jacqueline. What's coming up next for you?
Well, apart from working on a new Alice-Miranda book, I do have some other events and promotions and activities happening. So on the 20th and 21st of January, I'm running some writing workshops for keen young writers aged sort of 8 to 13 at Abbottsley, and it's part of the Explore program. It's open to everyone. If you Google Abbottsley and go to Abbotsleigh Explore, then that will bring up the information for you. I know there are some limited places left on those 2 days. And also I'm really thrilled to be doing 2 high teas at the Tea Salon at Westfield in the city in Sydney. It's an opportunity where we're actually going to preview Alice-Miranda in Japan. And so the people who come along to that, the children who come to that, will be able to purchase their book 2 weeks before it's available in the shops. So the number for the Tea Salon is 92332231. If you're interested.
Very exciting for those little ladies, especially attending a high tea. How very proper. Lovely. And Alice-Miranda's name again is?
Alice-Miranda Hyton-Smith Kennington Jones.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to have to get you to record that so I can just play it again and again. Thanks very much for joining us on the Author's Shelf today, Jacqueline. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
I've had a ball. Thank you so much, Georgie.
That's all right. Don't forget this week's giveaway for your chance to win either the complete series of Alice-Miranda. Can't say the name, sorry. Jacqueline Harvey has given us the complete series of both Alice-Miranda and Clementine Rose. Pop over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Author's Shelf, and simply like our post. We'll pick a winner and announce them on our next show. If you'd like to find out more about Jacqueline and her gorgeous characters, Alice-Miranda and Clementine Rose, visit her website, jacquelineharvey.com.au. Well, that's all for another show. We'll be back on the 26th of January with author Tina Marie Clark and a special Australia Day show. Until